What's going on, guys, and welcome back to #AskGSM episode 375 here today for Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and recovering from Royal Rumble weekend as I am. Obviously, the return of Christian was my highlight of the night. I didn't finally get cured of my markoutitis until this morning. So, for those wondering how I'm doing following that grand return of Christian on Sunday, that's my update. So, I'm doing well. But yeah, very exciting night with the Royal Rumble on Sunday. What I thought was a good episode of Raw on Monday. And now tonight we have Beach Break from AEW, another stacked episode of NXT with Edge appearing. That's pretty cool. SmackDown is usually pretty good on Fridays, so it's a good time to be a fan right now. And that's not even, including all the other promotions doing cool stuff right now. So I'm pretty optimistic for the immediate future of the wrestling world. But here today on the show, we are answering your questions from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Two quick things before we get started here with two exclusive interviews coming here to the channel and have already come to the channel. First one being my exclusive interview with NXT superstar Kacy Catanzaro. If you're subscribed, and why aren't you? You should be. It went up this morning here on the channel, so check that out. Had a great conversation with her before she battles Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez alongside Kaden Carter tonight on NXT in the semifinals of the Women's Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. So that went up in audio form here on the channel earlier. The article either will be up by the time this video goes up or will be at some point on dailyddt.com. So check that out. Also coming tomorrow, and again, I cannot stress enough, if you're not already subscribed and getting the updates whenever a new video goes up, you're missing out. What the hell are you waiting for? Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, and on Bleacher Report in article form, my exclusive interview with the winner of the 2021 Men's Royal Rumble winner, the Rated R superstar himself, Edge. Had a really fun time talking to him. Unfortunately, didn't have a ton of time. It was a great time, but just it didn't last a long time. I think he was backstage at the Thunderdome. You can hear people talking in the background, so he might have been actually backstage at Raw when we talked. And this was Monday afternoon, literally less than 24 hours removed from the Royal Rumble. So that's going up tomorrow in article form on Bleacher Report, in audio form here on the channel. And I'll probably include it in tomorrow's episode of WrestleRant Radio. So 3 different ways to check out the interview. Check them all out on WrestleRant Radio, on Bleacher Report, and most importantly, here on the channel. We are quickly closing in on 5,000 subscribers. And that would be an awesome milestone. Just subscribe, spread the word, get more people to subscribe. Because in 2021 alone, and what wrestling fan wouldn't like this? We've had interviews with Kacy Catanzaro, Fandango, Apollo Crews, Keith Lee, Stone Cold Steve Austin, AJ Styles, Roman Reigns, and now Edge. That's a pretty stacked lineup with some of the biggest stars from Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and the WWE Hall of Fame. You're going to want to subscribe and get these interviews as soon as they're uploaded here to the channel. You will not be disappointed. So enough of my shilling. Let's get right into the questions here. Starting with the YouTube questions. First from Brandon A. from YouTube. He's always got great questions. First one being, and the only one being that is, for this week. And by the way, I haven't put in all the questions as of this recording into a document. So if I miss anything or if I miss your question, I apologize. Just let me know and I'll try to answer it next week. If I liked your comment and you don't hear the question answered here on the show, I probably overlooked it. Because really, right now, I usually put all the questions into a document. But just because today's been busy, I'm just reading the questions off of the YouTube video itself from last week and on my Twitter, in my likes. So I apologize in advance if I missed your question. But Brandon's question was, what's up, GSM? My question has to do with people always being so down on Triple H wrestling at Mania. Solomonster mentioned it on his podcast this past week. I still don't get it. I feel like he is being punished for actually having longevity, which so many wrestlers can't claim for various reasons. I could understand if his Mania matches were trash, but they aren't, he says. If you look at just the WrestleManias in the 30s, last year he didn't wrestle. 35, he had a good but not great match with Batista, but it's a match that Batista specifically wanted. 34, he had the best match of the night with the mixed tag. 33, he had the second best match of the night with Rollins. I would put AJ and Shane as the number one, though if you want to put Brock and Goldberg ahead of it, I wouldn't complain. That's what he said. At 32, he did have a bad match with Roman, but that's mainly due to Roman not being over. It wasn't a horribly wrestled match, and Roman and Brock basically got the same reaction 2 years later because the fans turned on the main event. And finally, with 31 and 30, the match with Sting was a smoke and mirror spectacle that the fans enjoyed, but hated the finish, while Triple H and Daniel Bryan had the match of the night at WrestleMania 30. Triple H does not warrant so much backlash for wrestling at WrestleMania, especially considering his feuds have made sense going into the shows. He delivers in the matches, and you know they are going to do some legend-based attraction matches every year. He is much more capable of pulling off these attraction matches than any of the other legends they have used recently. If he ends up wrestling AJ Styles, which is the rumor, it's going to be one of the best matches at Mania, especially when you consider AJ pulled off the best match at Mania with Shane McMahon. And one last thing. Yes, it is obvious that AJ elevates Triple H in that scenario, but nobody was against Jericho wrestling Omega, Tanahashi, Naito, not Naito. I'm a fucking idiot. Naito or Evil, and was very clear that they, along with the no DQ stipulations, helped Jericho a ton in those matches in comparison. A lot to dissect there. I'm not really sure what you were going for with the Triple H stuff. I'm not with the Triple H stuff. I'm sorry, with the Chris Jericho stuff when you said AJ elevates Triple H and Jericho, blah, blah, blah. With Jericho, I mean, this isn't really your argument, but real quickly, with Jericho, people... Honestly, not everyone was excited for every one of those matches. I'm going to be honest with you. I saw a lot of mixed opinions regarding the Tanahashi match and the Okada match. The Omega match was amazing. Obviously, people weren't shitting on that match because it was his first match in New Japan, and also it was amazing. It was a completely different Jericho than we have seen in 20 years. It was not the same Jericho from WWE. It was a completely different Chris Jericho. The other matches, I didn't see a lot of those matches, to be completely honest with you. From what I heard, though, they were pretty good. By WWE standards, they'd probably be great. By New Japan standards, they weren't amazing. And I don't see anyone clamoring to see more of Chris Jericho in New Japan anyway. I know you kind of asked, I think it was you, maybe it was someone else. I think it was you, Brandon, that asked about maybe last week or 2 weeks, I think it was 2 weeks ago. No, I think it was last week, about the AEW New Japan partnership and why it wouldn't work, and we've seen a lot of these people in New Japan a lot before, so why would we do these matches again? I completely agree. With Jericho, would it be cool to see him pop up in New Japan again? Yeah, but if he's already faced everyone else, every really top star they have, from Tanahashi to Evil to Naito to Okada, how much more can you do with them over there? You know, so I don't really agree with that last part. I think it's completely different than Triple H, even though they're around the same age. With Triple H wrestling at WrestleMania, I'm going to be honest with you, I completely agree with a lot of what you just said. The matches that you listed off and the reasons for why it wasn't as bad as people kind of claim it to be, I completely agree. And I think with Triple H, my main thing, and I agree with Solomonster, I agree with you, and I agree with him. I agree with you in that I did not hate a lot of those matches that you mentioned. I was at WrestleMania 35. I enjoyed, to an extent, the Batista match. It was far from the best match on the show. A lot of people didn't give a fuck about it. You and I are different than I feel like the majority. I was there. I enjoyed the match. But being in the crowd for that show, people did not give a large shit about that match. And the build I thought was really good. Like you said, it was a match that Batista wanted. People were largely bored by that match. I was also there for WrestleMania 33. I enjoyed Rollins and Triple H. That's the only thing I would disagree with you on, is that you said it was the second best match on the show. I do not agree with that at all. Yeah, Randy and Wyatt fucking sucked. It wasn't quite that levels of bad. Rollins and Triple H I thought was a good match. I don't think it was a great match. AJ and Shane had a great match. Jericho and Owens I thought had a better match than Triple H and Rollins. It was just a better overall match, in my opinion. The tag team title ladder match was a better match than Triple H and Rollins. Brock and Goldberg was absolutely better than Rollins and Triple H. What else was even on that show? They had the women's title matches. What was the main? Oh, Roman and Taker was shitty. I mean, I guess Rollins and Triple H was better than that. But yeah, it was not a very exciting match. You're right, 34, he stole the show. That wasn't, solely true. That was a mixed tag team match. Angle was in there, Rousey was in there, Stephanie was in there. So it wasn't just him, but he did play a big part of that match. 32, no one cared. The 31 match I agree with. I enjoyed for what it was. I wouldn't have done it again, and I don't think that match was necessary. And then 30, he stole the show. So, with Triple H, though, I agree. Those matches are not all-time terrible matches. My thing with this year, in that I don't want Triple H to wrestle at WrestleMania 37, unless it's against AJ Styles, is that all those other matches, they made sense. I completely agree. Going into all of those matches, I had no issue with Triple H being at WrestleMania. I didn't, because those matches made sense. The Roman match had been built up for a long time. So I was fine with them doing that match when they did. It had been built up for literally years. So I get it. The Rollins match had also been built up for literally years. So I understood that. The Rousey match at 34, that had been built up for literally years. The Sting match, they had been building it up since Survivor Series. They didn't need to do it. It could have been Sting and Undertaker, but whatever. They did that match instead. And then the Batista match had also been in the works for a long time. So I didn't have a problem with any of those matches. I said last year, though, pandemic or no pandemic, Triple H did not need to wrestle at WrestleMania because there was no opponent for him to have. They already had enough attractions. There was no one that made sense. Triple H has not been a regular character on any of these shows in years. It's been probably since that Batista match 2 years ago. And even then, Triple H wasn't a regular on Raw. He only came back for that match. And I'm glad about that. I like Triple H a lot. But I don't think he needs to be on the show every week like he was in 2013, 2014, 2015 as part of the fucking Authority. When we finally moved away from that, I know Raw is not great now. It was a lot worse back then. I think a lot of people forget about that. With the Authority bullshit, holy shit, it was fucking terrible. It was really, really bad. There is no one opponent to me that makes sense. AJ is a fresh match, but I'm not really sure. I mean, Taker and AJ didn't make a whole lot of sense either because they didn't really come at it. They didn't really build it up aside from the whole Super Showdown like, oh, AJ wants to face a legend or whatever. They kind of made something out of nothing there. The Triple H match, maybe they can say, oh, I brought you in here and you've got a big head now. Now I want to take you out. That's what Triple H can claim. I guess. The AJ match intrigues me just because it is a match we've never seen before, though there really is no reason for it to happen aside from two things. One, AJ wanting that match, and two, I'm not really sure what other marquee match you have AJ do at Mania if it's not with Triple H. I was thinking AJ and Edge, but obviously that's not happening. Edge is going for the world title. Unless AJ becomes champion before them, which I don't think will happen, then I don't think that match is going to happen. Nor should it. They could save it for down the road. But who else from Raw can AJ really face? And I think I've gotten to this. I've talked about this before, but like it kind of worries me because AJ's a big star. I know RJ's mentioned before, oh, put him in the Battle Royal. I think he was serious, but like obviously he's not going to end up in the fucking Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. There's just absolutely no way that happens. AJ has had a singles match at WrestleMania for the last 4 or 5 years. All of his WrestleMania matches have been singles matches. He was in the main event of last year's show with The Undertaker on night 1. Maybe they could do a multi-man match for the U.S. Championship and he ends up in that, and I feel like that's a waste of AJ. At this point in AJ's career, he is almost done. He only has a few years left. Probably no more than a year or two, to be honest with you. You gotta utilize this guy while you have him. To put him in a random mid-card ladder match, multi-man ladder match in Mania is a complete waste of AJ Styles. So the Triple H match to me is intriguing. Because if you don't do that, I really have no idea where he ends up on the card. Unless they call someone up, I don't know. Like Finn Balor, I don't think would be called up before then to face AJ at WrestleMania, although that would be cool. I don't see that happening. So I'm not exactly sure. Him and Keith Lee, maybe. I don't really. That doesn't make a lot of sense as of right now. I don't want to see Triple H at WrestleMania unless the match makes sense. AJ Styles is the only opponent. I talked about AJ's aspect of it. From the Triple H standpoint, AJ is the only opponent I think that is worth for Triple H to come out of this mini retirement for. Because if not him, then who else? He's already faced Brock a billion times. We don't need to see Goldberg and Triple H again. We don't need to see Triple H and Randy Orton again. We don't need to see Triple H and The Undertaker, which they've done that a million fucking times, and I think Undertaker's actually retired this time. I don't need to see John Cena and Triple H again. You know, maybe Keith Lee. I know they had an interaction backstage, but they would have to turn Triple H heel for that, and I just, maybe. I've said before, Kevin Owens and Triple H, just because they had that history from NXT a little bit, but, you know, Kevin Owens is on SmackDown, and I don't know, that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It would have to be AJ Styles. So it's not because, all of Triple H's matches are boring. A lot of them are, to be honest with you. A lot of them are. Before, you know, the Randy Orton brawl on Raw a couple of weeks ago, Triple H had not really, that wasn't even really a match, but he hasn't wrestled on Raw since, he has not wrestled at all since Super Showdown a couple of years ago against Randy Orton in 2019. That match fucking sucked. It was probably one of the better matches on the show, which is terrible because that show was just awful in general. But that match was so fucking boring. It was so fucking boring. That match wasn't great. The Batista match I enjoyed, but people did not like it as much. Crown Jewel fucking sucked. The other Super Showdown match he had with The Undertaker 3 years ago was not fucking good either in 2018. That was not a good match either. Before that, the Rousey match, I enjoyed that. That was a mixed tag, though. And then there was the Rollins match. I thought that was fine. For what it was, you know, it has to make sense. In Triple H's career, at this stage of it, whatever match he comes back for, it has to make sense. You shouldn't bring him back just because he wants to wrestle or just because they got to get him on the card. You really fucking don't. I don't think people are going to tune into WrestleMania just to see a Triple H match unless it makes sense. With all the other attractions they're bound to bring back for the show, whether it be a John Cena or a, hopefully not Taker, but a Brock or a Goldberg or whoever else. They don't need Triple H. And they should also be focusing on the future anyway. I would rather see someone from the current roster on the show with a match that makes sense than Triple H in a match that doesn't. So I agree with you. And the Triple H hate is a little, you know, it's not deserved. But the match has got to make sense. That's the bottom line. I know I went on for a while with that question, but I like the question a lot, which is why I went on for a while about it, because I agree. I just feel like the match has got to make sense, and you shouldn't bring him back otherwise if it doesn't. The other YouTube question, what do you think is next for Kevin Owens, speaking of whom? And do you ever see him becoming world champion again? I mean, he could. I'm not going to say that he won't. He's obviously... You know, it's not like with Jinder Mahal, for example, which I could very well see him coming back and getting a WWE title match against Orton at some point. But after he lost the championship, I don't think he's gone for a world championship since then. He feuded with Roman Reigns for like a month, and that was a fucking waste of time. But other than that, though, he has not flirted with the main event scene since he dropped the belt. Even Kofi Kingston. I mean, Kofi, I think there's a lot less likely of a chance that he ever becomes champion again than Kevin Owens. Because at least Kevin Owens has had main event world title programs since he lost the Universal Championship 4 years ago. He lost the belt 4 years ago, but he's coming off this great series of matches with Roman Reigns, where he came close to winning the title, but not quite. So they had that. He had the whole feud with Seth Rollins last year. That was a pretty prominent program over on the Raw side of things. What else has he done? I know he was at the U.S. level a few years ago. He was feuding with Shane McMahon, which is a pretty big feud. Didn't love all of it, but it was a pretty prominent feud for the most part. Feuded with Shane again in 2018, or 2019 rather. So he has gone for world championship since then. Hasn't won it all. Hasn't won anything aside from the United States Championship. But, I think it's possible. I'm not going to say that he will become world champion again. I feel like they only did that because... that wasn't even the original plan for him to become Universal Champion. It was supposed to be, I think, obviously Finn Balor was supposed to be champion for a while. So whatever reign that Owens had, it was probably going to be Balor in that role for a while. And they kept the belt on him just because it made sense with the story they were trying to tell, blah, 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 blah. So what's next for him now? I really don't know. Coming off of 3 losses to Roman, does he turn heel again? I don't really want to see that. I feel like it's too soon for that, to be honest with you. I guess they could do that, but even if they do, what do you do with him at WrestleMania? Him and Sami Zayn would be cool. Maybe they form a tag team. Maybe. I feel like, again, been there, done that, so maybe not. I'm not really sure who you have him feud with on the SmackDown side of things. Maybe Rey Mysterio, but Mysterio doesn't feel like he means much right now for that feud to matter. Again, Sammy, maybe. Big E, not really. I'm not sure. I would have to look at the SmackDown roster because I feel like he's feuded with a lot of people. And unless they bring back someone, I don't really know. Honestly, I'm not really sure what's next for him. I mean, he went for the WWE Championship at one of these pre-WrestleMania pay-per-views 2 years ago. What was it, Fastlane? And he wasn't even at WrestleMania. So it is entirely possible that with Kevin Owens, they give him this giant babyface push on SmackDown, and now they have no plans for him, so they just leave him off the WrestleMania card or put him in the Battle Royal. I could absolutely see that happening. And I hate to even say that, but I fear that's the direction they're going in, because if not, what else do you do with them? It's not even like they have this great idea. Like, oh man, it's so dumb of them to not do this with Kevin Owens. They've booked him into a box to where he doesn't mean a lot right now. I mean, he does, coming off the losses to Roman, but he lost all 3 matches. So he's not going to get any of those wins back, at least not for a while. You're not going to keep him in the world title picture, nor should they. They have to move on. Daniel Bryan, maybe? I know they had a match at WrestleMania a few years ago. It was a tag team match. I don't know if we've ever seen it one-on-one before. To my memory, I think they were actually supposed to do Owens and Bryan at Fastlane one-on-one. And then Ali got involved. And yeah, I think Ali was maybe pinned, but they never went back to Bryan and Owens. So maybe, but it looks like they're going to do Rollins and Bryan. And Owens has already feuded with Rollins. That's not really an option. Even if they bring back Aleister Black, they've already feuded. Don't really want to see that again. I honestly don't know. I'm trying to think who else is on SmackDown that he can feud with. Aside from Sammy, again. I really don't know. I'm honestly not sure. So, yeah, I really don't know what you do with him next. I'm not really sure. I'd have to think about that some more, and I guess we'll see what happens on SmackDown. I could very well see him not appearing on the show, though, until they figure out something for him to do. At Iwagu91, do you think that Edge will challenge Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship at WrestleMania? I do. Assuming the champions stay the same up until Mania, which they should. Edge and Roman, Edge and Drew is a fresh match. We've had it a few times before. That was 10 years ago. 2 totally different people now in 2021. Edge and Roman is a match that makes sense, though. I think it could be a good match. The story makes sense. Roman is killing it right now. I am all for Edge and Roman at WrestleMania. I probably wouldn't have been recently, like before he came back, but the story they're telling with Edge, it makes sense. And Edge doesn't even have to win. Maybe I'll change my mind, but he doesn't even have to win. So I am all for Edge and Roman at WrestleMania, and I think that's the direction they're going in. His next question, what are your thoughts on Daniel Bryan getting eliminated from the Royal Rumble match? I was a little disappointed that he wasn't in there until the very end, just because he was a top person to win. So, for example, like with the women, I feel like the top 3 choices to win, aside from Alexa Bliss being booted when she was, which made sense just because of her character, but the other top 3 people to win were Charlotte, Bianca, and Rhea. And it was such a great final stretch of the match because you could believe that any one of those women could have realistically won. So, with the men's match, Edge and Orton made sense as the final 2, just because, of the story between the two and the history and the feud, whatever. You knew Orton probably wasn't going to win just because him challenging Drew, again, didn't make sense. Him challenging Roman did not make sense. So it kind of had to be Edge. If it was Edge and Bryan, then it's like, oh shit, any one of these guys could win. But what they did instead, from a storyline standpoint, made sense. So I was fine with it. And at least with the Bryan elimination, unlike a guy like with Owens, which I have no fucking clue what you do with him from this point, at least with a guy like Owens, you have... at least with a guy like Bryan, you have a WrestleMania match that makes sense. Seth Rollins eliminated Daniel Bryan from the Royal Rumble. That's where I think they're going with them. And I'm completely okay with that. They've had matches before, even since Bryan came back from retirement a few years ago. But they've always been great matches, but they've never actually had a formal feud against each other one-on-one. Rollins is another guy. He has to be in a prominent match at WrestleMania. He's not going to be in some sort of fucking random ladder match for like a 5-man ladder match for the IC title. It's got to be something like this. Him and Bryan make sense. Bryan deserves a prominent match on the card. And this is it. They even set it up when, what was it, Bryan, when he first came back in October, and they had that interaction on SmackDown. Now they're finally paying it off. So I am totally for that match at Mania. And the way they eliminated made sense. I just wish he lasted a little longer. Probably over a guy like Braun Strowman, who I don't see having any prominent match at WrestleMania, because who gives a fuck about Braun Strowman at this point? ULGoo91, did you know that Luchasaurus has a master's degree in medieval history? Just kidding, that's been obvious. Real question, what are your thoughts on Jungle Express, both as a team and individually? Well, it's Jurassic Express, but nonetheless, I'm a big fan of theirs. I was going to say I'm wearing their t-shirt right now, but I'm actually wearing a Lucha Bros shirt. I do own a Luchasaurus shirt, though. But I like Jurassic Express a lot. I think they're a great team. My only issue with them, I guess at least up until recently, because I really enjoyed Jungle Boy and Dax Harwood last week. I thought that was a lot better than it really had any right to be, considering that Harwood is not a single star. Jungle Boy is more of a single star than Harwood is, but he doesn't have a lot of experience in that area, and I thought they fucking killed it, specifically Jungle Boy. But before the FTR feud, it didn't really seem like they had much of a direction. They have been spinning their wheels for close to a year now. And they're one of the teams that gets hurt from not having a live crowd in the audience. I mean, they do now, but not as many fans as they did previously, pre-pandemic, because they were really, really over. Because, okay, they don't have a direction, but they're really over, so it's okay. The crowd isn't there reacting to them, and they're just spinning their wheels on fucking dark doing random shit. So thankfully, they have this newfound feud with FTR, even though it doesn't really mean anything. There's nothing on the line. It's just a random tag team feud, which is fine to keep them busy. But at some point, they've got to be in the tag team title picture. I don't give a fuck about Marco's stunt, but Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy are that good. And Jungle Boy has future single star written all over him, which is why I really want them to win the tag titles at some point, whether it be from the Young Bucks or whoever, just so we get that run from them in the tag team title picture before Jungle Boy goes off on his own. And Luchasaurus, I think, could be a breakout single star, too. They're both really, really good. But I also want to see them get their time to shine in the tag team division. And this is where having so many fucking tag teams doesn't do them any justice. Because they have so many teams that a lot of teams get lost in the shuffle. I feel like that's kind of the case with them. Although they are finding their way again, and I appreciate that, I do want them to win the tag team titles at some point before they inevitably go their separate ways and branch off in a singles competition. At noob_n_co 1991, do you think Asuka and Charlotte's rivalry will go full circle at WrestleMania 37? I've been pretty invested in the storyline since WrestleMania 34, and I want to see the story end on a positive note. I don't. There is still the chance they do Charlotte and Asuka at WrestleMania, but with Rhea Ripley now being on the roster, I guess they could do Charlotte and Asuka and then do Rhea Ripley and I guess like Alexa Bliss if you wanted to. I honestly do not see them doing a match at WrestleMania with the women that isn't for a championship. I really don't. Unless it's like a Rousey situation. Rhea and Alexa Bliss, I like the idea of them having a match at Mania without a championship on the line. If they build up the story good enough. You could do it as maybe like an interim pay-per-view match, but I feel like Rhea is above the whole supernatural shit. I like what Alexa Bliss is doing, but I don't think Rhea Ripley should be involved in that shit at all. She's just a completely different competitor. Plus, you have the unfinished business with Charlotte. So why wouldn't you pay that off first before you go into anything else? It's, in my opinion, if it's not Asuka, Charlotte, and Rhea at Mania, Charlotte and Rhea is a bigger match to me than Asuka and Charlotte. Rhea and Charlotte, we have only ever seen once one-on-one. Asuka and Charlotte, we have seen a lot one-on-one. They had the match at Mania that Charlotte won. They had a rematch on SmackDown later that year. I think Asuka won by disqualification, but they did it then. Asuka lost the SmackDown Women's Championship to Charlotte before WrestleMania in 2019. They had a few other matches when they were feuding in tag team competition, in late 2019. Asuka, I think, beat Charlotte on Raw at that point. They had a match on Raw last year for the Raw Women's Championship. I don't need to see the match again. I really don't, at least not at WrestleMania. It's been done to death over the last 3 years. I don't need to see Asuka and Charlotte again. Rhea and Charlotte is a bigger story. It's not like with Asuka and Charlotte, they have this grand, long-term story. With Rhea and Charlotte, you do. Whether it be intentional or not, because I don't know if they ever expected, when Rhea comes up, we'll have her avenge the loss. It was just a dumb booking decision to have Charlotte win in the first place last year. But you can rectify that wrong by having Rhea beat Charlotte for the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania. I do feel bad. It does fuck over Asuka again, because a lot like when she lost the championship before WrestleMania 2 years ago, she ended up in the fucking Battle Royal of the show. Honestly, I think an ideal match to do would be the triple threat at WrestleMania. Charlotte and Asuka have that history. I think, what's his name? Alex McCarthy from TalkSport had brought it up about how if you do the triple threat, this was a while ago, but if you do the triple threat, you have the story of Asuka wants to beat Charlotte and Rhea, but only one can beat her. So who's it going to be? I like that story a lot. I don't love multi-women and multi-man matches at WrestleMania, but that at least would make sense. If I had to choose, though, of a singles match, Asuka and Charlotte or Charlotte and Rhea, absolutely 120%, it would be Charlotte and Rhea. And then what is Rhea going to do? End up in the Battle Royal? Just keep her down in NXT at that point. Their next question, what are your thoughts on Mako Satamora signing with NXT UK? From the looks of it, I think it'll be Kaylee Ray. I think Kaylee Ray is pretty much going to lose the NXT Women's Championship very, very soon. Yeah, that looks like the next match they're setting up. I am all fucking for that. You asked me a week or two ago, who do I see her dropping the belt to? And I had no idea. No one from that division stands out to me. Aside from that Valkyrie girl, which, is a possibility, but I don't really feel like she's at that level yet, as being the one to beat Kaylee Ray for that belt. Mako Satamora, whether she's a player coach or not for that brand, she should get a nice little reign with that championship. I think it would bring a lot, not a lot, but bring some more eyes to the product and get people talking. And first of all, the match would be great. But you can't get much bigger than Mako Satamora. So to beat Mako Satamora than to lose to Valkyrie, I don't know. I'd rather have Mako Satamora be the one to beat Kaylee Ray for the belt, give her a nice long reign, then she can become like a stepping stone for other women. Give her the Asuka reign over in NXT UK. So, I think Kaylee Ray is going to be the one to lose. I think Mako's going to be the one to beat Kaylee Ray for that championship, and it'll probably be very soon. I'm not sure if they would save it for a takeover, when that takeover would be. They haven't had a takeover in over a year at this point due to the pandemic, so I'm not sure. But that's what I would do. I would have Mako be the one to take that championship from her. At Reborn Again from the Twitter machine, John Ritland, check out a show, Real Honesty with John Ritland on YouTube. His first question was, do you think some fans sound hypocritical when they praise one company for using part-timers while slamming another for doing the same thing, like AEW, like Sting in AEW, Goldberg in WWE, etc.? Yeah, it depends on the situation. I thought you were talking about Edge there for a second. You didn't mention Edge. Just real quickly, I interviewed Edge, like I mentioned, and I asked them about the whole part-timer thing. Edge is not a part-timer. I know he only had like 2 or 3 matches last year, but that's because he got hurt. Had he not gotten hurt, I'm sure Edge would have become more of a regular on Raw than he was. The pandemic happened. You weren't going to throw him on Raw for a random match at that point. Now, he wrestled at the Rumble for an hour. No fucking part-timer they've had in the last 10 years has wrestled for an hour. Nobody. So you had that. He wrestled on Raw the next night. He was all over that show. He's on NXT tonight. He's on SmackDown on Friday. Honestly, he might feel more overexposed than anything. This week I get it just because he just came back and he's still fresh and it makes sense with the whole Rumble thing. You can't appear on all 3 shows every week. You'll be overexposed within a month. If that might be generous. Edge is not a part-timer. He is back for, way more matches than I think people assume that he is. But anyway, with Sting in AEW and Goldberg in WWE, not everyone loves the Sting usage in AEW, so it's not like, we love him in AEW, but we hate Goldberg. It's got to make sense. Goldberg, I like, and I don't mind the occasional attraction match from him, I think the issue with Goldberg is that in 2021, he's already had his title reigns. He should not be fighting in title matches in 2021. People can shit on Taker all they want, and a lot of people do, towards the end of his career for his matches not being all that good. But Taker never had to wrestle in a fucking title match. Taker has not wrestled in a title match in literally a decade. And I honestly think Taker should have gotten one more run with a top title before he retired. He didn't. Maybe not in 2020, but like in 2015, I think you could have put the belt on him for like a month or two, or 2016 or 2017. They didn't do that, whatever. Goldberg and Brock have held the belts so many times. I do not want to see them come back and go for a championship. Like, not even contend for it. Not even contend for it. If you bring him back with a story for an attraction match that makes sense, I am all for that. Sting, just from what I can understand, wants to end his career on a high note. Okay? He wants to end his career after he didn't really get that chance to end his career in his terms in WWE. He wants to do that in AEW. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with him wrestling a match or two. We'll see how the Revolution match goes. And I'm sure I've talked about this before, but if the Revolution match is absolutely terrible, I might think twice about him wrestling again after that. And from what I understand, it's going to be a cinematic match. And it's a tag team match. That's a smart way to do it. It's a match that makes sense. He's in there with three young guys. He's not facing fucking, Chris Jericho. Yeah, I don't love the idea of that match. But three young guys, I'm completely in favor of that. The only thing about Sting I don't like in AEW, he's a part-timer in the ring. He's a full-timer on the show. He is the one person I don't think should be on the show every week. You could put Edge on Raw every week. Whatever, I think that's okay. And he's going to wrestle. Sting, if he's not going to wrestle on Dynamite, nor should he should not be on Dynamite every single week. That's my problem with Sting, and that's a very minor criticism, but he feels more overexposed than anything because he's showing up and not doing anything new. Not really saying anything new, and they have a lot of time to kill before that pay-per-view match. But he doesn't need to be on the show every week. He can be on every other week or once every 3 weeks, and I think that would be way more effective than him coming out every week to do absolutely nothing. So that's my issue with Sting, and that's my issue with Goldberg. Otherwise, if they use these people correctly, I have no problem with it. I have no problem with that whatsoever. It's not like they're putting the belt on fucking Sting. That would be stupid. Especially when they already have a stacked enough roster, AEW does, and they have enough stars, however you define stars, where they don't need to do that shit. WWE doesn't either, which is why I'm glad they kept the belts on Roman and Goldberg, God forbid, Roman and Drew, as opposed to putting the belts on Triple H again, or whoever, Goldberg or Brock. No thanks. We should be well beyond that point at this point. His second question: is there any chance WWE screws up Bianca's momentum coming out of the Rumble by not having her win the title from Sasha at WrestleMania? I think I've said this before. They don't have to have Bianca win at WrestleMania, and maybe the story they tell going into WrestleMania will change that. For example, if they have Bianca out there every single week, a lot like Kevin Owens, where she gets her ass handed to her every single week, I think with Kevin Owens, to be honest with you, I think they did it a little too much. I know they want to tell the story, he's a fighting babyface, blah, blah, blah. But when you have someone get their ass kicked, as often as Kevin Owens did, and then he loses, he looks like a fucking loser. With Bianca, if she has her ass handed to her every week and she loses, then she looks like a loser, regardless of whether she won the Rumble or not. I honestly don't really think she absolutely needs to win. I think she should win. If you ask me now who should win at WrestleMania, Sasha or Bianca, I say Bianca. But I don't think it's a case where she absolutely has to win. She's already lost. She's not undefeated. She's only lost once to Bayley, but that's it. She's not undefeated. It's not like the Asuka situation. Asuka had been undefeated for so long and had only just arrived on the main roster literally like 4 or 5 or 6 months earlier, where having her lose at that point was stupid. And the reason they did that was because they wanted Carmella to cash in, which was also a mistake because she wasn't ready and she wasn't that good at that point. She's better now. But that title reign was terrible. Her matches were fucking awful. And that's coming from someone who likes Carmella. But anyway, that was then, this is now. With Bianca and Sasha, Bianca can endure the loss and bounce back and always win it down the road. If it makes sense. As long as there's a long-term plan there, then it makes sense. Charlotte beating Asuka at 34 was stupid. Charlotte beating Rhea at 36 was stupid. Sasha beating Bianca, Listen, I'm honestly okay with that just because Sasha has never won at WrestleMania. Charlotte has now won, 3 times at WrestleMania? And she's lost a fair amount too. But she's also won 3 matches. Sasha, for as great as she is, she's never won at WrestleMania. So her winning, honestly, would probably make even more sense. Keep Bianca in chase mode. She can win it either at the next pay-per-view or at SummerSlam. I am a big proponent of striking while the iron is hot, which is why I would have Bianca win. But it could be a different story 2 months from now. But Sasha lost at WrestleMania 32 in that triple threat with Charlotte and Becky. She lost at 33 in the 4-way with Charlotte, Bayley, and Nia Jax. She lost at 34 in the Battle Royal on the fucking pre-show. She lost at 35, the tag team titles to the Iconics. She lost last year in the 6-pack, 5-pack challenge in the SmackDown Women's Championship match, the match that was ultimately won by Bayley. She lost that too. What is that, 4-5-0? Or 0-5 or whatever? She deserves a win, and if it comes this year, I wouldn't complain. So it's really a win-win in my situation, regardless of who wins. And then John's next question here. I've seen the criticisms of AEW's women's division, and some of them are definitely valid, like how some aren't ready for TV while others are. But isn't WWE guilty of that too? Talents like Mela, Carmella, Lana, Tamina, Nia aren't good at all, but are still featured. Definitely. I think people have just gotten used to seeing those people on the show. I disagree with Carmella. I think Carmella has improved, and I think the Sasha matches prove that. She was, like I just said, the 2018 run that she had as champion was fucking terrible. Her promos were good. Putting her back with Ellsworth was dumb. The matches were not good. She has improved. Lana fucking sucks. Tamina fucking sucks, and Nia Jax fucking sucks. Lana, honestly, might be the most bearable out of all of them, and that's not saying a lot. She's just really, really bad. Nia hurts people and is just terrible all around, and Tamina has never been good, which is concerning considering she's been here for a decade. Imagine being under contract anywhere and not improving a lick in 10 years. That takes a certain sort of skill. But yeah, WWE is guilty of that. They should not be featured. Carmella, I get. At least she's interesting and she's improved. Lana is not interesting, she sucks. Tamina and Nia should also not be featured. They're all terrible. So yeah, WWE is absolutely guilty of that, but they kind of get a pass because they have a lot of other women that are featured that are ready and that are fine. AEW doesn't have a lot of women, and they don't feature their women nearly enough. It's not, some aren't ready for TV, but they aren't even on TV to begin with. Some of these people, not even Sheeta is on TV often enough. And she is ready for TV, so they just have different problems than WWE altogether. At Jeremy 8-9-11, he said, Bad Bunny and Damian Priest versus Miz and Morrison. If Priest and Bunny win, if they win and then Priest wins the Money in the Bank from Miz. Just, we got to stop with the Money in the Bank thing. I know Otis won it originally. He lost it to Miz. To have him then lose it to Priest would be stupid. You're passing it around like a fucking STD at that point, for one thing. The second thing is that the Money in the Bank pay-per-view is in 3 months. And the contract would expire at that pay-per-view. It doesn't matter who holds it. It doesn't automatically renew for a year if it changes hands. We're getting the pay-per-view soon. Priest would not cash in successfully before May. He's not ready for that yet. That's dumb. The Bad Bunny and Damian Priest match versus Miz and Morrison makes sense. I don't like... You didn't say at WrestleMania. If you do it on Raw or you do it at the next pay-per-view, I'm okay with that. The only issue with dragging it out until WrestleMania, if they go that route, because I read a report about them trying to find a role for Bad Bunny at WrestleMania. My only issue with that is that there is no way that you could drag that feud out that long. They've already done Priest and Miz. You could do Priest and Morrison, maybe a handicap match with Priest against Miz and Morrison, but that's about it. Bad Bunny probably won't wrestle before then. How many segments of Miz TV can you fucking do with the Dirt Sheet and Miz TV before WrestleMania, which is in 2 months? So I don't mind the idea of the match. It gives Priest a rub, gets him off on the right track. But it's got to be on Raw, or it's got to be at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. Because anything beyond that, I feel like would be dragging it out too long. Jeremy's next question. After the next match between The Fiend and Orton, do you think Orton should be, or becoming a part of the Funhouse with Bray and Orton? competing in the tag team division? With Orton and Bray competing in the tag team division. That question was hard to read, but with Orton and Bray becoming a tag team. You know what? I don't hate that idea. I think Orton as the Legend Killer is great. He was killing it in that role last year. I don't know what more you do with him, though, considering he's already faced and beaten Drew, Keith, AJ, all these people he's had a million matches with. I think the tag team thing is new. He hasn't had a lot of partners in recent years. Him and Bray were partners 5 years ago. In 2016, they won the tag team titles together, and guess what? It was really cool. Orton was doing great work. Bray was doing great work. I'm not really sure what more you do with The Fiend beyond the Orton feud. Like, he's not going to go after the U.S. title, I don't think, or the WWE title right now. So, honestly, I don't hate that idea. You should do a Firefly Funhouse match, and then maybe have Orton join them, and have it be Orton, Alexa Bliss, and Bray Wyatt. I think Orton was way better when he was with the Wyatts 5 years ago than when he was feuding with the Wyatts, because the feud itself sucked. I thought it would have been better, but it sucked. The tag team alliance that they had was just way better. So honestly, that's a good idea, and I wouldn't mind seeing that at all. At E13A, Emmanuel's question was Belair and Ripley the first final two in a Rumble since Batista and Cena in 2005 were both wrestlers or rising stars? That's a great question. That is a very good question. And both women also have not won any championships on the main roster. So let's quickly recap. I know we're going back 15 years here, but I could do this real quickly. So that was 2005. 2006, the final wrestlers were Randy Orton and Rey Mysterio. They were rising stars at that point, but Orton had already been established. He was a former world champion. So you could say that one, but Orton was already a world champion, so let's disqualify it. 2007, Taker and Shawn. Amazing final two, but they were not rising stars by any means. 2008, Cena and Triple H, no. 2009, Triple H and Orton, no. 2010, Edge and Cena, no. 2011, Del Rio and Santino. Del Rio was. Santino was not a rising star, so no. 2012, Sheamus and Jericho, another great final two, but Jericho was not a rising star, so no. 2013, what was it, Cena and Ryback? Ryback was, and he still lost, but Cena was not. 2014, Batista and Roman, no. 2015, maybe 2015, because technically the final two were Roman and Rusev. I mean, it didn't have Cena and Batista vibes, because Rusev was never going to win a world championship, nor did he, with how they booked him following that point. You can make the argument for Roman and Rusev, though. They had never won, neither of them by that point, had ever won a world championship. I know Big Show and Kane were in there too, and Rusev only kind of swooped in at the last second, but technically Rusev and Reigns. So I will say that one, although it's not the same thing as Cena and Batista or Belair and Ripley. 2016, Ambrose and Triple H, no. 2017, Orton and Roman, no. 2018, we had Asuka and Nikki, no, because Nikki was not a rising star. And then for the men's, Nakamura and Roman, no, because Roman was already an established guy at that point. 2019, the women, I think it was Becky and Charlotte, not rising stars, they'd already both won a bunch of belts. Rollins and Braun, no. 2020, so last year it was who? Roman and Drew. Roman's already established, so no. And then for the women, it was... who won the Women's Rumble last year? Oh my god, I'm blanking. Oh, Charlotte and Shayna. No. So yeah, aside from Roman and Rusev, which no one really ever remembers, and that match sucked anyway, yeah, I would say Bianca and Ripley was the first final two, since Batista and Cena, that were rising stars and had never been champions of any kind, really, on the main roster. I know Rhea was a former NXT UK and NXT Women's Champion, but neither have yet to win any sort of championships on the main roster. Roman and Rusev, they had been, U.S. champion, tag team champion by that point, so it was a little different. But yeah, I would say Ripley and Belair really had Cena Batista vibes, and that's why I really, really liked it. His second question: now that Carlito has finally returned to WWE, quote, dirt sheet reports X is returning, unquote, surprise wrestlers are left. So he's referencing that for it's been a running joke for a decade now that Carlito, John Morrison, and Shelton Benjamin are coming back in the Rumble, and they never did. But now they're all back. They're all back now. Carlito came back this year. Shelton came back to the company 4 or 5 years ago. He's been back for a while, and he's been in Rumbles. And John Morrison came back last year and was also in the Rumble this year and last year. So they all came back. And then in addition to those people, we had MVP come back. Rey Mysterio returned in 2018. MVP came back last year. Rey Mysterio in 2018. The Hardy Boys came back. So yeah, I think the only other person that I could see them rumoring, is he going to be back, blah, 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 would be Mr. Kennedy. I've heard nothing about the guy. I know he wasn't in great shape the last time that we saw him in NWA, but he's that last guy from that era, in my opinion, that I could see returning. That I think would be cool from that era, that I think people, I think would pop for, because Kennedy was a very memorable character for as long as he was around for, and that wasn't very long, but he was still pretty memorable. So I'm going to say Mr. Kennedy, but that's about it, though. We haven't seen any dirt sheet reports about, Kennedy's coming back. I haven't seen anyone say that in the last couple of years, but he might be the next one. Mark my words. And then Emmanuel's next question, do you think WWE will go back to this match? And it was a picture that Big E posted of himself and Christian from 2014, because remember, Christian's final match was before Sunday was a fatal 4-way on Raw. I remember this very vividly. March of 2014. He beat Dolph Ziggler, he beat Alberto Del Rio, and he beat Sheamus in a 4-way to become the number 1 contender to the Intercontinental Championship, a match that he was supposed to get on main event the next night against the then champion Big E. The match did not happen as Christian was concussed, wasn't cleared, never returned. Big E is the current Intercontinental Champion, not still, because that was 7 years ago. He recently got the belt back. Christian is not on any one certain brand. So honestly, I hope we do get that match. Big E is obviously acknowledged it. People are bringing it up. I think that would be awesome. And hey, Christian hit him with a kill switch in the Rumble on Sunday. His first kill switch in a decade was to Big E on Sunday, which I thought was very fitting. Will we get the match? Probably not. Big E's currently feuding with Sammy. He's currently feuding with Apollo Crews. So we probably won't get that match. But I think it would be cool if we did. I think it would be very cool if we got that match on SmackDown, either as a one-off or Elimination Chamber. I think that would be really cool. At Scarlet 1, best and worst of the Wednesday Night Wars. I thought both shows last week were good. I don't have the 2 shows up in front of me. Usually I do. I don't remember off the top of my head. The Dusty Classic stuff was good. I thought Lorcan and Birch versus Balor and O'Reilly was a good match. The only thing I didn't care about from last week's NXT was Dante Rijos and Tyler Rust. It was just way too competitive. Way too competitive. Dakota Kai and Raquel versus, who did they face? Jessie Kamea and Aaliyah. That was too competitive too. Those are my only nitpicks regarding that show. Dynamite I liked. I thought Kingston and Archer was good. Cody and the Shaq thing, the promo from Red Velvet was good, but I don't give a fuck about that shit. I really don't care. The main event was actually really good. Bullet Club, Young Bucks, Good Brothers, whatever, versus what was it, Dark Order. That was a fun match. Yeah, I liked both shows overall last week, and I hope we get equally entertaining shows this week as well. At Scarlet 1, best and worst of Royal Rumble 2021. There really wasn't any worst. I didn't care about the tag team title match, which is why I'm glad they bumped it to the kickoff show. I didn't watch it until the next day. But I'm glad they bumped it because the match was just very formulaic. I don't care about the tag titles. I don't care about Charlotte and Lacey and Rick. I don't care. So that was probably the worst. Everything else was good to great. I thought both Rumbles were strong. Not the best they've ever done, but they were good and enjoyable. Sasha and Carmella was not as good as their TLC match from the TLC pay-per-view last month. It wasn't a TLC match, but it was from the TLC show. Not as good, but it was still a solid match. Reigns and Owens was great, and McIntyre and Goldberg was exactly what it needed to be. So, yeah, I thought it was a very good show overall and one of the better pay-per-views they've done in a while. And that's coming off of TLC, which was also a great pay-per-view. They haven't had a really bad pay-per-view in a long time, so I will give them that. Their next question, what do you make of Lars Sullivan's apparent release? So, yeah, news broke yesterday. from PW insider Mike Johnson had reported that Lars Sullivan was officially done with WWE. He confirmed that too. I think Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful on Fightful Select earlier today, I caught some excerpts of that. I guess it was his call. I thought WWE just let him go because they didn't want him. And that was my big question. That was my question. Why would they let him go after they brought him back last year? And I say they, but we specifically are obviously referencing Vince. I'm not sure many other higher-ups really cared if he was there or not, but Vince was obviously very high on him. I've liked Lars before. Obviously, he's problematic for shit that he said in the past. Has he expressed remorse for it? I thought he did. A lot of people are really hard on him. I mean, it is what it is. I'm not going to say that you're wrong for doing so. But anyway, he made it sound like in talking to Fightful that it was his choice for leaving, and his anxiety was just too bad. That whole anxiety thing from 2 years ago was a shoot. And it was still bothering him. There were days where like he wouldn't eat and he would get no sleep. And, WWE was his dream job, but wrestling, I guess he's just not cut out for it. He's just way too anxious. So, yeah, I guess it was his call. And if so, hopefully he gets the help that he needs, just because it sounds like it's a pretty bad issue for him. So hopefully he gets the help that he needs. But I know a lot of people that just are very happy that he's gone and just don't care. So, hey, that's perfectly fine. I just wish they had not put him over Hardy and Gable in that case. But it sounds like it was his choice to leave and not because Vince lost interest. Although that might have been a factor too. I'm not sure. And then at Scarlet One, their final question. What do you make of Bad Bunny, Shaquille O'Neal, and the general usage of mainstream celebrities, quote unquote, in professional wrestling? I don't always hate it. I don't hate the Bad Bunny stuff. I just don't care. I really don't. If they put him in a tag team match, if they think that's going to get them more mainstream publicity, then great. I don't think it will. I honestly don't. I have no idea who Bad Bunny is. A lot of people that I know have no idea who Bad Bunny is. Shaquille O'Neal has a lot more mainstream publicity and a much bigger name, in my opinion, than Bad Bunny does. And that's not even an opinion. I think that's just a fact. The Shaq stuff, I like Shaq a lot. Honestly, I was one of the 5 people that actually wanted to see, for whatever fucking reason, Shaq and Big Show at WrestleMania. Just because they teased it so long ago, I wanted to see that payoff at WrestleMania, and we never got it. Just the Cody and Shaq feud has made absolutely no sense. There's no reason for it. Cody's a babyface. Shaq has not acted like a heel. I don't care about Jade Cargill. I don't care about Brandy Rhodes. She got pregnant anyway. That is just a mess. If you do right by it, then I'm totally okay with it. Having Snoop come out and host the show a couple of weeks ago on Dynamite, I thought was perfectly fine. Bringing in people that are fucking fans of the product, what a concept. Apparently Bad Bunny is a fan. So there is something to be said for that. You should not be shit on for coming in. I'm not shitting on the guy. I just don't care about him. I honestly just used his concert on Sunday as a bathroom break. Who cares? But if they think it gets more mainstream publicity and the guy's a fan and what he's involved in is interesting, then I can't fault them for that. So I can't think of like the Demi Burnett girl, for example. I think that was her name, the Bachelor girl. She seemed to be a fan. She played her role well. WWE clearly had that was their fault. They clearly had no idea where they were going with that shit. I'm fine with that. I thought that was perfectly fine. If it makes sense and they're a fan or they don't shit on it and it's actually worthwhile, then I'm all for it. Otherwise, if it's a celebrity that just no one cares about, we don't know who they are, they don't give a shit about this, the storyline sucks, then I would say no. But it's a case-by-case basis. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode 375 here today of #AskGSM for Wednesday, March. Why did I say March? It's February. I'm getting ahead of myself here. February 3rd, 2021. Thank you guys, as always, for checking out the show. I appreciate it. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Drop a question on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. And once again, guys, check out my exclusive interviews with Casey Catanzaro right now here on the channel. And also when it goes up in article form over on dailyddt.com. That was a great interview up right now here on the channel. And with Edge tomorrow on Bleacher Report in article form here on the channel at 8 a.m. Eastern Time and over on WrestleRant Radio later on in the day on Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, Google Play, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio. It's going to be all over the place. My interview with Edge drops tomorrow, which means all the more reason to subscribe right now to the channel and hit that bell button to be notified every time a new video goes up. Please, 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 please help me get to 5,000 subscribers. It's an awesome milestone. We're getting closer and closer, and the more people that subscribe, the quicker we will reach that milestone. So help me out there. I would greatly appreciate it. In addition to that, be sure to like this video, drop a comment, and share the video. All that stuff is greatly appreciated. Have an awesome one, guys. Enjoy the road to WrestleMania. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.